My name is Elsie. Standing in the middle of this now silent house, holding the deed like a shield against the lies, I'm flooded with a mix of anger and relief. The music has stopped, the laughter has faded, and the guests are filing out, their faces a blend of shock and discomfort. My parents, my sister, and her family stand there, stunned, as I've just shattered their false narrative. It all started when I was making a cup of tea one evening. My phone buzzed with a Facebook notification, and there it was, a tag from my sister, Lily. The post showed a photo of balloons and a caption that made my blood boil. So excited for Mom and Dad's housewarming this weekend. I scrolled through the comments, seeing familiar names of neighbors and old family friends. Everyone was invited, except me. And the house they were celebrating? I bought it with my hard-earned money, in my name. My family has always been a complex web of emotions. I was born into a family where my older sister, Lily, who is 6 years older than me, was the golden child. My parents, Mr. and Mrs. Thompson, are a classic example of favoritism. My father is a cold, calculating man who values success and achievement above all else. My mother, on the other hand, is passive-aggressive, always making subtle jabs and comparisons between me and Lily. Lily was the star student, involved in every extracurricular activity, from dance recitals to debate competitions. Her photos were everywhere in our house, on the mantle, on the fridge, and even in frames lining the hallway. I, on the other hand, was the invisible one, blending into the background. I remember one Christmas, when I was about 8 years old. The tree was decorated with ornaments, most of which had Lily's face on them. I asked my mother if I could have an ornament with my photo, and she just shrugged and said, "Maybe next year, dear." That was the story of my childhood, always waiting for a chance to be seen. But there was one place where I felt truly loved, my grandparents' home. My grandfather, Mr. Henry, and my grandmother, Mrs. Helen, lived in a cozy cottage on the outskirts of town. Every weekend, my parents would drop me off there, not because they wanted me to have a good time, but because they saw it as a convenient babysitting service. At my grandparents' house, I was the center of their world. My grandmother would bake my favorite cookies and tell me stories about her childhood. My grandfather would take me fishing and teach me how to fix things around the house. They made me feel like I was worth something. When Lily went off to college, things at home changed. I was suddenly expected to take on all the household chores. There was a list taped to the fridge: dishes, laundry, vacuuming, and cooking dinner. My mother would say, "Since you're the only one here now, it's only fair you help out." And so, I did. I learned how to do everything, from separating the laundry to making a perfect roast. But no matter how hard I worked, my parents never seemed to notice. They would come home from work, eat the dinner I made, and go to their rooms without a word of thanks. It was as if I was just a servant in my own house. Despite the neglect, I didn't give up on my dreams. I started staying up late, browsing college websites on the old family computer. I read about different majors, scholarships, and campus life. I knew that going to college was my ticket out of this house. When the acceptance letters came, I was overjoyed. I got into 3 great universities: State University, City College, and Coastal University. I lined them up on the dinner table, waiting for my parents' reaction. My mother barely glanced at them and said, "That's nice." My father sighed and said, "We can't afford it." We spent all our savings on Lily's study abroad program. I was heartbroken. I tried to explain that I could get scholarships and work part-time, but they wouldn't listen. They told me to get a job and save up, like a responsible adult. I called my grandparents in tears. They didn't hesitate. They told me to come over right away. When I got there, my grandfather handed me a worn-out folder. "We've been saving for your education since the day you were born," he said. Inside were bank statements that would cover the cost of any of the 3 universities. With my grandparents' support, I moved into their house before starting college. I chose to study finance, not only because I was interested in it but also because I wanted to understand the power of money that my parents had used against me. I worked hard in college, got good grades, and landed a great job after graduation. I climbed the corporate ladder, saved my money, and bought my first condo by the age of 25. I was finally independent. Over the years, I kept in touch with my parents, but our relationship was always strained. We exchanged the occasional holiday text, and I would visit them once in a while. Lily and her husband, Mark, had 2 kids, and they moved back in with my parents after a financial setback. The house I grew up in was in a state of disrepair, with peeling paint and a leaky roof. One Sunday, I noticed how tired my parents looked. My father was having trouble walking, and my mother was constantly bending down to pick up after the kids. I decided to do something for them. I told them that I had been saving money and wanted to buy them a new house. They were shocked and grateful. We started looking at houses together. We found a beautiful 1-story house in a quiet neighborhood, with a big garden for my mother's flowers. I paid for it in full, without taking out any loans. The papers were drawn up, and I was ready to transfer the deed. But my parents promised to throw a housewarming party, and I thought I'd wait until after the party to sign the papers. Weeks passed, and there was no sign of the party. Whenever I called, they gave me vague answers. "We want it to be perfect," my father said. "Still trying to find a good date," my mother added. Then, I saw Lily's Facebook post. I was furious. I drove to the house, parked a block away, and walked up to the front door. The music was playing, the cars were lined up in the driveway, and the balloons were swaying in the wind. I walked inside just as my father was making a speech. "It took a lot of sacrifice, but we finally have our forever home," he said, raising his glass. And of course, Lily was a huge help with the down payment. "She's always so thoughtful." My mother chimed in, "She takes care of us, unlike some people who are too busy." I stepped forward and said, "Some people own this house." Everyone turned to look at me. My mother stammered, "We didn't expect you." I cut her off. "You didn't invite me to the party for the house I bought." My father tried to brush it off, saying it wasn't the right time. But I wasn't going to let them get away with it. I pulled out the folder with the deed and showed it to them. "This house isn't yours. You never signed anything." My mother started to cry, saying they assumed I was giving it to them. I replied, "I wanted to help you, not be forgotten." The guests were shocked. Lily looked pale, and Mark stared at the floor. One of the kids asked, "Why is Auntie Elsie mad?" I turned to the guests and said, "The party's over. This house isn't theirs." My parents tried to reason with me, saying they needed a place to live. But I was done. I told them that I was going to sell the house and that I was done being their doormat. One by one, the guests left. My parents, Lily, Mark, and the kids gathered their things and walked out. The house was empty, and I was left with the silence. In the days that followed, I received a barrage of calls and messages from my family. At first, they were apologetic, then they became angry. I ignored them all. I blocked their numbers and emails. I was done with their manipulation and lies. I sold the house and used the money to invest in my future. I bought a small cottage at the edge of town, a place where I could be myself. I planted lavender in the front garden, just like my grandmother used to. Every morning, I sit in the corner window, drinking tea and reading. I look at the photo of my grandparents on the mantel and smile. They taught me what real love is, and I'm grateful for that. I don't know if my parents ever think about me or if they regret what they've done. But I've stopped caring. I've built a life for myself, a life free from the chains of their expectations. And for the first time in my life, I feel truly free.